Oh. Swami, we offer our collective pranams at your lotus feet, and please join us today's satsang and bless us to continue to do your work with love and joy. My loving Sai Ram to all elders, brothers and sisters, thanks for joining our online 6th satsang. Let's thank our frontline workers who are taking care of our day-to-day needs and well-beings. I would like to add our region Sai families who have already delivered 1,000 masks, and this project is still continue and support our local organizations need. We pray to Bhagavan to give these wonderful Sevadals with good health and strength. Now we are fortunate to have Dr. Akshay Kalatia as our guest speaker. Brother Akshay was born in Mumbai, India, and was raised in the US since the age of 6. He first heard of Swami while a skeptical university student in 1985. With Swami's grace, he was drawn into his fold, prompting his first visit to Prasanthi Nilayam in 1988. Over the past 30 years, Brother Akshay has been active in Sai organizations with various roles at the center and regional levels. Since 2000, he has been privileged to serve General Hospital Puttaparthi as an ENT physician. I witnessed myself his dedication during last year Guru Purnima medical camp. He goes to the general hospital to take care of his patients, to do the follow-up, and runs back to the camp and eating quick lunch, and then take care of the visitors too. Very active, and we love to have as our national service coordinator, right? Right now, as I said, he's serving as national service coordinator for Zone 1. And then I had an honor to have Brother Akshay's guidance as regional president and now national service coordinator. Akshay is married to Kalis, and they have 4 children who are attending universities at undergraduate and graduate level. Let's welcome Dr. Akshay to share his thought and Bhagavan stories with us. Over to you, Akshay. Sai Ram.
With love and gratitude, I offer myself to my guide, my guru, and my God, Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba. Sai Ram, everybody. Let me start the timer on this meeting just to make sure I don't go over, because when we start talking about Swami, we can go on forever. One of my favorite activities as a Sai devotee is to listen to the stories of Bhagwan and to share them with friends, with family, during retreats, after retreats, just sitting around talking about the amazing stories of Sai. The conversation can go on late into the night, and we all lose track of time. So as we all isolate during this pandemic, I've had a chance to sit back and reminisce on many of these stories that bring such joy to my heart. Stories that I've heard from friends, from family, from Sanatana Sarthi, from Radio Sai. So I thought I'd share some of these memorable stories. Initially when I first became a devotee, the stories that would grabbed my attention were those of miracles and manifestations that Swami would perform to delight all of us. Then with time, the stories that kind of grew traction and really touched my heart were the stories that demonstrated how Swami lived the values that he spoke of. In addition to being so moving, they would teach us lessons for all of us to imbibe and just try in some little way to emulate them. So in addition to relaying these stories, I want to try to, highlight some of the lessons that I can learn from these stories as well. And hopefully you all can as well. So, and I'm sure many of these stories are familiar to you, and some of you may have told me about these stories. And so what's great about sharing these stories of Bhagwan is that you can hear the same story many times, and each time it brings such joy to our hearts. So before I get into some of these stories about Swami, I wanted to share a couple of stories regarding the first theme of stories that I kind of put together. And this theme is sacrifice. And it's a hallmark of all saints and sages, this principle of sacrifice. So I wanted to share some interesting sacrifice stories from different sages from the past. And one of my favorite stories that I heard was that of Sage Ramanaju. And Sage Ramanaju was born almost exactly 1,000 years ago. And he's well known for the Vishishta Advaita philosophy or qualified non-dualism. So he, as a child, was obviously enamored with spirituality, and could only think about God and wanting to be close to God and wanting to have that divine experience. And he heard that there was a very famous sage, Sage Goshtipura, who lived some distance from his village, who had this fantastic mantra. So immediately, once upon hearing this, Ramanaju traversed the distance to go to Gostinapura and say, sir, I want nothing more than to feel the bliss of divinity. Please share your mantra with me. The sage had nothing to do with Ramanaju, and he ignored him. So poor Ramanaju had to trek back to his village, and then he'd be at home and just start craving and wanting to have that experience, and again would go to Goshtipurna and say, sir, I really want this mantra. And this happened over and over again. And a total of 18 times he went to this sage. And finally, on the 18th time, he was crying in despair, so earnestly wanting this mantra. So finally, the sage consented and said, okay, this mantra has come from Lord Vishnu. It's a secret, sacred mantra. It's not meant for anybody. It needs to be cherished. And only certain people can get it. I'm going to give this to you. You must promise never to share this with anyone. So he shared the mantra with Ramanaju, and Ramanaju heard the mantra and bliss overcame him. He had never felt this way before, just reverberating bliss in his heart. He was so joyful and just lost in divine bliss and chanting the mantra, and it went on and on and on. And then finally he gathered himself and started walking back home. But as he was walking back home, the thought came to him, well, what about all of these people? There's so much suffering in the world. How much benefit can this mantra give to the common man? They need it so desperately. So he went around the village and started collecting people and saying, people, I have this wonderful news for you. Please gather around. He climbed to the top of the Vishnu temple of the village and said, people, I have the key to liberation, the key that's going to give everyone joy. I have this mantra. Repeat after me. Om Namo Narayana. Om Namo Narayana. Om Namo Narayana. And the crowd would chant after him. And pretty soon, everybody was chanting Om Namo Narayana. And everybody was in ecstasy and bliss and joy. And it was just reverberating with this exchange of bliss and joy going on. In the meantime, Gostinapurna heard about this, and he was not pleased, as you could imagine. They brought him to where Ramanaju was, and the sage was enraged. How dare you? How could you do such a blasphemous act? You are destined for hell. And Ramanaju calmly and humbly said to the Guru, if an insignificant person like me has to go to hell, it is of no significance, and it is worth it because if I can bring so many people joy, it's worth it that I can go to hell. And upon hearing this, the guru himself realized this is an elevated soul, and he embraced Ramanaju and said, from here on in, I will be your disciple. So such is the power of sacrifice and the exhibition of this sacrifice by saints. Another story of saints exhibiting sacrifice, and I'm sure we all know this story. This is a story of Krishna. Krishna one day feigned having this headache. He put on this act of having a headache as a test for those around him, particularly for Sage Narada. So Krishna started wailing, oh, I have a headache, I have a headache, oh, nothing is helping this headache. And it went on for days. Everybody was concerned. The queens were brought in. Finally, Krishna said, the only thing that's going to relieve this headache is the dust off of the feet of my devotees. As soon as he said that, there was silence. People were thinking at this time, how can I possibly give the dust of my feet to the Lord? That's blasphemy. That's against Dharma. The karma I would incur, I would go to hell. I would suffer for lifetime after lifetime. There's no way I would even dream of doing that. So nobody volunteered to do anything. They were just so worried about this act. So finally, Krishna said, Narada, go to the gopis and see what they say. So Sage Narada went to where the gopis were, and he came upon them, and the gopis who were, and Swami has said this many times, the gopis are nothing but sages that knew the avatar was coming down, and they wanted to immerse themselves in this joyful interaction with the avatar. So all these sages took birth as the gopis. So when the gopis encountered Narada, they said, oh, Narada, bring news of our wonderful Krishna. How is Krishna? We miss him so much. We're always thinking about him. And Narada said, I have bad news. Krishna has a headache. It's not going away for days and days. The only thing that's going to help his headache is the dust of the feet of a devotee. And immediately the gopis collected the dust from each other's feet, gave it to Narada, and said, Narada, rush back to Krishna. This will help his headache. Don't delay. And Narada went back to Krishna. And when Narada arrived, Krishna revealed to Narada, this was just a play. I didn't have a headache. I wanted you to see what kind of devotees these gopis are, how they're willing to sacrifice themselves. Nothing matters to them other than pleasing their Lord. So a beautiful story, again, illustrating this principle of sacrifice. Another sage or prophet, the holy prophet Muhammad, he had so many episodes that have been narrated about what kind of sacrifice he made for the people of his day. And, this one story I'm going to share is not a big, grand thing, but it's the small things that sometimes can tell you the character of a person. So this is a kind of small episode, but I think it just illustrates what a wonderful, powerful example of sacrifice the Prophet Muhammad was. So one day, a poor man was brought in front of the Prophet, and he wanted to, get the blessings of the Prophet and please the Prophet and give his thanks to the Prophet for revealing to mankind the Holy Quran. So he brought these grapes to the Prophet, and the Prophet took the grapes. He ate one, took another grape, ate the second grape, ate the third, and then he proceeded to eat all of the grapes. And he didn't offer the grapes to any of his companions that were near him. The poor man saw that the Prophet relished these grapes and was so happy, and he left. Then his companions, after the poor man left, approached the Prophet and said, dear Lord, dear Prophet, dear Sir, we know you're so magnanimous and you're so gregarious, and we've never known you not to share. Why did you not share this gift with any of us? Why did you eat all of those grapes? And then the Prophet said, he smiled and he said, I ate all the grapes by myself because the grapes were sour. If I would have offered them to you, you would have immediately made a funny, sour face, and that would have made this poor man realize the grapes were not good, and he would have been embarrassed, and it would have hurt his feelings. So I thought it was better that I ate all the grapes myself, and this way this poor man's feelings wouldn't be hurt, and he would be cheerful and be pleased and be happy. So again, in a small episode, but it shows the magnanimity and the principle of sacrificing your needs for the needs of others. So another, and Swami has mentioned this, that sages, saints all do sacrifice, and avatars are known to perform sacrifices. And Swami said that, the Krishna avatar, the Shirdi avatar, they oftentimes took on illnesses of their devotees. It just has not been recorded or documented in history, so we don't know about it. But they have done that. It's the characteristic of an avatar to do that out of their sheer compassion for mankind. Another example, the avatar Jesus. So Jesus sacrificed his body, his entire life for mankind. He willingly did this. He could have, he knew the Romans were going to get him. He knew they were coming for him. He could have easily escaped. He could have used his powers to get out of the situation in a multitude of ways. But no, he chose to sacrifice his body as an example. He allowed his body to be tortured and killed. And this is the reason he's so revered and worshipped, because of the sacrifice that he willingly took on for the benefit of mankind, to learn from his example and to then show them days later that there is life beyond the body, beyond what we think is the limitations, and that we can all achieve this wonderful life and not to be limited by what we think is the end of the body. So going on to Swami, there are numerous examples of Swami exhibiting sacrifice. In fact, his whole life was nothing but a sacrifice. And it's always, I love hearing about and reminiscing about his stories from his childhood. So many amazing lessons we can learn. We've heard these stories, but it's always fun sharing them. So, his family in Puttaparthi was not that well off. They were of very meager means. And periodically, his father, through his business, would be able to go into a neighboring town, do some little shopping, and bring something home for the family. So he would come home and bring various items and clothing and allow people to choose what they wanted. And the young little Satyanarayana Raju would always let everyone else choose first. Sacrifice, even in the little things. He let others choose first, not even thinking about his own needs, but thinking about needs of his others. Another episode from his childhood, he would go out of his way and pull beggars in from the village into his home for his mother, Ishwarama, to feed them. And so this went on over and over again. And finally, the mother got fed up and said, Swami, we can't keep doing this, because, if you keep giving your food for beggars, you're not going to have any food for yourself. So Swami gladly, at that point, he refused eating food. He said, no, give my food to the beggars. And the poor Ishwarama would plead and plead and plead, and it took so long for her to get Swami to eat. So again, as a child, he was ready to give up anything for the benefit of others. When he was going to primary school, for some time, he would live alone with his grandfather, his elderly grandfather, Kondamaraju. And what Swami would do is he would run all the way to the grammar school in the morning, run back home, cook the meal for his grandfather, clean everything up, and then run back for the afternoon classes. Day after day after day, trying to serve his grandfather. What kind of sacrifice is that from a young child? Another episode, later on when he moved to Uravakanda to live with his older brother, and he was able to go to school there. There was a water shortage in that area, and people had to walk several kilometers to go to the well to get their water for the day. And the young Swami would be the one that would go all the way to the well, carry the buckets on his shoulder, and bring it back. And he did this day after day, multiple times a day. In fact, he developed welts and scars on his shoulders that he had to the end of his life. There were scars from him carrying this. Again, he willingly did this. He felt, when he was confronted by this, his answer would be, this is a service that I'm happy to do for my family. After Swami got bit by the so-called scorpion bite, his little leela of separating himself from his family and starting the process of showing them that he's special. So his family, didn't know what to make of this. He was behaving very pensively. He was meditative states, and they thought he was possessed by a sorcerer, by evil spirits. So they brought him to a nearby village, a famous sorcerer who was known for black magic to try to rid people of these spirits that may have invaded them. So this sorcerer did all sorts of torture on this young Swami, cutting his head and scarring his head and letting out blood and pouring lime juice and acid and all sorts of things. And the little Swami, little Raju, would sit there and not even wince, which of course made the sorcerer even more upset and do even more torture. But again, he sacrificed the pain, learned to ignore it for a greater purpose. Again, showing people that he is special, that he is ready to start his mission. So, throughout his life, even past his childhood, just think about his daily routine for the 80 something years that he served his devotees. He would have darshan literally every day. That's a sacrifice. Every single day he would come out for the benefits of his devotees. The simplicity of his food, the simplicity of his clothing, the simplicity of his room. He would live in a little tiny room. So everything was about others. Whatever he would get, he would immediately give to others. He would sacrifice for himself. Cardinal principle of an avatar. So, even in very simple actions, and I want to get into some of the stories that I've heard over the years that I just really love hearing, and they really drive home that message. So this is a story that I heard Dr. Ravi Kumar share on Radio Sai. And he shared the time when he was a young student in the 70s. And a busload of villagers, and you could tell by their dress that they were from North India, and you could tell that they were of meager means. They had tattered, dusty clothing. They had come from a long journey, and they arrived at the Vrindavan ashram. The problem was they arrived 45 minutes after the darshan was over. And for whatever reason, they only had that day to see the avatar. They were so disappointed and dejected. And they waited and waited, and people were telling them, darshan's over. So they had tears welling up in their eyes, and they felt sadness that they had missed this opportunity to see the avatar. And as they were turning, ready to leave, Swami came out. And this was in the time of the day when the hot sun was there. The sand was very, very hot. So the student rushed up to Swami with sandals and said, "Swami, here are your sandals to protect you from the hot sand." And Swami sternly said, "No." And the student was thrown aback. He didn't understand why would Swami say no, and so sternly. And Swami walked out on the hot sand, went up to the devotees, gave them pad namaskar, gave them sweets, took pictures, vibhutis. He spent 25 minutes with these people. They were so blissful and joyful. Later on, when Swami was back in his quarters and the student was there, Swami took the time to explain to him. And he explained to him, that the reason he didn't take the sandals is, look at all those villagers that came. None of them had sandals. They were all suffering in the hot sand. How could I wear sandals when they did not have them? So again, sacrifice, even in the so-called little things. His entire life was a sacrifice. Another wonderful story. Many years ago, Swami would take the students to Kodai Canal. And oftentimes the students would all be in a bus and be traveling to Kodai Canal. And Swami oftentimes would be ahead in the car. So the bus the students were in broke down. And it took a long time for the repairs, and it became very, very late into the night by the time they finally arrived to Kodai Canal. And usually around 8 o'clock is when Swami retires. But this evening, Swami was pacing up and down the hall for nearly 3 hours after that time, and just waiting for the students, showing his concern for the students. When the students finally arrived, Swami made all the food arrangements and just made sure everybody was comfortable and feeling well and well fed. And then it was only after Swami retired and the boys had finished eating that they found out that Swami himself had foregone his meal. He chose not to eat because the students hadn't eaten. So again, demonstrating that concern for others is more important than for yourself. Another similar story, one time in the 70s, the students put on a play. They went to Mumbai, and at the end of the play, when they were gathering all their things, they realized all the jewelry that they had was stolen. So everybody was despondent and distraught. What happened to all the jewelry? There was a massive search to no avail, and they searched for many, many hours. And finally, they had to come back, and they came back late and very, very sad, very dejected. And they reported to Swami, and Swami said, "What's the matter?" And, they explained to him, and Swami said, "Oh, is that all? Go and eat." Students ate, and then they, again, realized that Swami himself had refused food because the students hadn't eaten. So he himself would not eat. And then to finish the story, later on, Swami manifested all the jewelry that was missing. Another story of these little tiny things, and Swami often teaches us, is before we can even dream about doing the big things in life, the stepping stone is the small things in life. We have to learn to do little things, because the little things will teach us automatically how to do it for the big things. So here's another example. So one day, Swami told all the students, "Okay, boys, VIPs are coming. They're going to come to the dining hall. Make sure everything is spick and span, clean and proper." And then later on, Swami came to survey the area. And as he was walking around and inspecting, he walked over to the wash basin and saw that there were some specks sitting in the wash basin. So what did Swami do? He right then and there rolled up his sleeves, used his bare hands, got the soap and started scrubbing the sink and cleaning it up. And others were trying to get him to stop and saying, no, Swami, we'll do it. No. And he just finished the task himself. He didn't say anything, and he just went to work immediately. So again, this is such a, he's being an example. He's demonstrating this principle of humility, of sacrifice, of setting the example. Another similar story, one day there was a festival, and Swami had all the staff gather for a feast, and he was going to give everybody a feast. And during the feast, the students were relegated the task of serving all of the honored guests. And just one of the boys whose job was it to serve the sambar had inadvertently spilled a little bit of sambar on the floor, but he didn't realize it, and he kept going on and was serving everybody. And then later on, Swami walked by that area, and he was casually talking to a devotee, and when he came near that spilled sambar, he kind of went out of his way and stepped right on the sambar and wiped it up with his foot. And he lifted his leg and then hopped on one foot so he wouldn't spread that sambar anywhere else. He had wiped up the sambar with his foot, and he told his attendants he was going to go clean his foot, and he went upstairs. Even though they tried offering him a napkin and offered to clean his foot for him, he went on himself to go upstairs to rinse his foot off. So again, lessons on doing a job properly, lessons on sacrifice, lessons on setting the example. It's these little things, and and those of us that were privileged to be able to learn from his students who lived that life, or his teachers who have been exposed to them. They had been exposed to this type of thing day in and day out, and that rubs off. And so they're so blessed to have been able to be in physical proximity to learn from these lessons day after day. So going on to some more stories. I want to make sure I keep track of time so we don't go over. Okay, so here's some other stories that, again, focusing on this theme of sacrifice. So in 1995, one of the water projects was full health going on, where he was providing water for those in need. And Swami gave an interview to a student and the student's mother, and they were in the interview room, and they were having a good conversation, and Swami went on to explain the projects and what was happening, and even mentioned all the costs were involved in it. And Swami casually said, well, I've already given the ashram in Vrindavan as collateral. just to be able to make sure we complete this project. That's how important this project is. And the student and the mother were like, oh my God, Swami, why do you have to do that? Swami casually said, I'm ready to sell everything, anything to complete this project. And then he pauses and says, I'm even ready to sell myself. And the student and the mother didn't know what to say. They were just gasping. And then Swami smiled and said, do you know what is my price? And then with a twinkle in his eyes, he says, I'll sell myself for a tiny bit of pure love, for that's the only thing that can buy me. So another example, another little story in an interview room. So one of Swami's students had just finished his MBA program, and Swami granted him an interview and had a chat with him. And then Swami asked him, well, what's your plan? And the student genuinely said, Swami, I want to serve you. And Swami said, serve me? But I do not need servants. I'm everybody's servant. You are my masters. So the student protested, no, Swami, we're the servants. You're the master. So they went back and forth, and Swami says, you're the master. And then after a while, the back and forth, Swami got a little stern. And finally, Swami said, I always keep doing whatever you want. My only concern is to give you joy. But do you always do what I want? No. Now tell me, who is the servant? So, we talked about sacrifice, and there's even sacrifice of his own body. And some of this is taking on the illnesses of devotees, which has been documented over and over again, countless times. So I want to mention some of these stories. And this one story was at the university. It was the anniversary of the MBA program. And Swami said, yes, he would come and bless. So of course, everybody was excited. The grand preparation was set up. The band was ready. The decorations were there. The hall was packed. And it was, everybody was awaiting Swami's arrival. But at that time, Swami had developed a severe illness. He was so weak, he could barely walk and he could barely speak. So the elder said, Swami, you shouldn't go out there. It's just our boys, they'll understand. And Swami said, no. And he insisted on going. And they brought him in front of the stage. And Swami literally limped in. And everybody was horrified to see Swami in this state. And he motioned to Professor Anil Kumar to bring the mic closer to Swami. And Swami feebly, tried whispering in the ear of Anil Kumar, saying he couldn't speak. And the audience was witnessing this. And it was just such a heart-wrenching scene that everybody had tears in their eyes. And eventually the whole audience was crying. And the scene went on for forever, maybe 30 seconds. And then finally, Swami just started singing in a clear, loud voice and went on to deliver a discourse for over an hour. And during the discourse, he went on to reveal that he had taken on a devotee's throat disease. And then he finished the discourse with a bhajan, and at the end of the bhajan, again, his voice started faltering and left him. And the illness that he had taken on lasted for several more days. So again, sacrifice, taking on someone else's illness, someone else's karma, out of sheer compassion and love. So what are some of the lessons from all of this? What can we learn as lessons? Well, one of the lessons is keeping our word. Keeping our word is very important. So he had said he would come, and he was going to do everything possible to keep his word. Second lesson is tremendous love for his devotees. The third lesson is the reciprocal love of the devotee. When that reciprocal exchange of love happens, brings so much joy for all involved. And he has so much compassion and empathy that he can't help himself. He can't but want to relieve the pain. Another episode where he takes on an illness. During the Dasara festival, they have these rituals and yajnas, and they have all the priests come in. It's a wonderful time. And in the evenings, they have the talks given by scholars, given by students. And so one of the students was scheduled to deliver a talk on the final day of Dasara, one of the most auspicious times. However, he became ill and he started having a bad cough, and he just kept coughing and coughing, and he couldn't even get a sentence out without coughing. And so the day before he was scheduled to give a talk, the cough was still persisting. So the professor brought him in front of Swami. Swami granted them an interview, and the professor said, Swami, this boy is not well and he has to talk tomorrow. So Swami gave him a compassionate look and motioned his hand over, and he put his hand over the boy's mouth, and then he put his mouth back to his own hand. And immediately the boy stopped coughing. And immediately, Swami started coughing. And Swami coughed throughout the whole night and the next day while the boy was able to give his talk. So what are the lessons from all of this? Number one, the power of prayer and repentance. The student was praying, the professor was praying. Once we pray and we show that we are sacrificing, we're surrendering ourselves to the Lord, that draws God's mercy and grace. And, these illnesses that happen to us is nothing but what we've brought on ourselves. Any of the difficulties that we get, whether they're mental or physical or social, we've brought them all upon ourselves. And so these reactions based on those actions are designed to teach us a lesson. It's actually good for us. We may not think of it that way, but these difficulties are actually good for us because they're giving to us, they're delivering to us what we need to understand the mistakes we made in the past. So once we repent and once we pray and once we surrender, we're developing certain qualities. And the purpose for these lessons is they're supposed to develop these qualities within us. But if we ourselves show that we have that quality, now there's no longer a need for the lesson. So Swami will take away the difficulty. He'll take away the illness. He'll cure us. He'll heal us because he knows we've learned our lesson and there's no more need for it. But the second lesson in all of this is Swami has created the rules of the universe and the rules of nature. And he doesn't like to violate his own rules that he's made. He likes to keep that discipline. So when he takes that away, that reaction has to manifest somewhere. So he takes it upon himself, upon his own body, that sacrifice, so that he's still allowing that that law of nature to take place. So I want to go on to another story, and this story is related by Swami himself. And it was from a July 22, 2002 discourse. And let me see how we're doing on time. Yeah, I think we have time to go through this. So I'm going to read this story because this is Swami himself quoting one of his stories. And I thought that would be nice to share. So this is Swami's quotes. This is his words. When the International Seva Conference started, the All India President, Mr. Srinivasan, requested me, Swami, to give a discourse. When I tried, I could not even speak. Then I felt, what is the use if I can't give happiness to all these people? Then I willed that the swelling should move from this joint to a forward point. Excuse me. I do not cure myself because then it becomes selfish. There is no selfishness in me. So Swami kind of didn't cure himself. He just kind of moved the illness from one part of the body to another part of the body so he could serve his devotees. And then further on in the discourse, Swami is saying, I preach to everybody to get rid of the body attachment and develop attachment to Atma or self. So I had to show by example not to have body attachment and to ignore the terrible pain. The day after tomorrow, it'll be normal. So then Swami goes on to narrate other times where he's taken on illnesses within this discourse. So here's Swami. One child was suffering, and the principal of the school sent a telegram to the parents of the child. The parents took the child to the doctor, and the doctor said it could not be cured. The child had to undergo suffering. The child was crying all the time without eating and drinking. I went by car to the school and called the child along with the parents into a room. I asked the boy, what do you want? He wanted the pain to be removed. I said, I will remove the pain. You tell me the food you like. He wanted biscuits as he had not eaten for 3 days. I materialized the biscuits and fed him and blessed him and told him to go to his classroom in the school. The parents were concerned and wanted to take the child home, but I told the child to stay in school. Then he returned to the classroom and he's had no pain. That's how I took his illness upon myself. I do many things like this. Once I took upon myself the paralysis of a devotee. There was a devotee by name Krishnappa, a vendor of flowers in Bangalore. He suffered from paralysis and he had a large family to support. So I took over his paralysis upon myself. Even though I take it upon myself, I don't cure myself. If I cure myself, it becomes selfish. There was a mother of 3 children in Nainital who lost her husband. She was working as a clerk and there was nobody to support her. She felt sad for the demise of her husband, and she used to work day and night to support the family. While going to the office, she suffered a heart attack. I was in Bangalore at the time when this happened in Nainital. I said, "Lakshmi, do not fear." At that time, I left my body, and the students who were with me were all worried. Then I came back and told them not to worry, but to take me upstairs. So I took upon myself the heart attack, and she became well, and the children were happy. I took upon myself the illness for 9 days and could not move. I suffered and then got better. Sometimes I have to take these illnesses. This happens to all avatars. This happened to the Shirdi avatar and the Krishna avatar. Though all these are not recorded, all incarnations have taken over the sufferings of devotees. God does his duty, whether it is recorded or not. I am ready to take the sufferings of anyone when they cannot bear it. So this was a powerful discourse of Swami revealing, a few times he reveals to us what he's doing and why he's doing it. So even towards the end of his life, to the very last moment of the life of that body that he manifested for us, he demonstrated sacrifice. So in 2003, Swami had suffered a fracture of his hip. And this is an injury that's incredibly painful. When there's a displaced fracture and it's not set in place and it's just sitting there, not stabilized, any slight movement can cause tremendous, incredible amounts of pain. So while Swami was in this condition, the boys were taking him up the stairs on a stretcher. And Swami was trying to convey something to them as they were carrying him. And the students naturally thought that, maybe he's in pain, maybe he's trying to tell us something we're doing is causing pain. So they tried to get up close to him to find out what he wanted. So what Swami said to the students was, "The guest doctors have come. Make sure you give them tea and biscuits." So this is our Swami. His body is undergoing all of this pain. And yet in the midst of this, his only concern is of the other, to make others comfortable. So, one of the lessons in when Swami's body suffers this pain is, the body of an avatar is like our body. It's through the discipline and the way they take care of their bodies and the serenity of their minds that their bodies are healthy. So the reason their bodies get ill is really because they're taking on others' illnesses. And there's a difference between pain and suffering, right? Suffering is when it's our reaction to the pain. And the avatars don't have suffering, but they do have pain. The pain is there, but they don't identify with their body. So they're able to distance the pain and observe the pain. But they're still having the pain. The body is still having the pain. They're just not associating themselves with the body. Another story, Swami's body had become very ill prior to the demise of the body. And the doctors were trying their best to do whatever they can out of their compassion and love for the avatar. They wanted to do whatever they could. And so they were giving oxygen therapy, and the body was having trouble breathing, barely able to talk, and could only barely mouth the words. So during this time, one of the students was attending on Swami, and Swami was gesturing something, and the student couldn't understand and had to really pay attention to find out what Swami was gesturing. And this is what Swami was, finally the student realized that Swami was saying that during this evening, a boy had given a letter talking about how ill his mother is. And so he's telling the student to get some vibhuti and give that to the mother. So here is the avatar whose body is undergoing all of this crazy stuff, and his mind is focusing on seva, on helping others till the last moment. So this is, again, an amazing demonstration of sacrifice and caring about others. And you know, another similar story. The last, few weeks or week of the body with Swami, Dr. Venugopal, who performed the very first heart surgery in Swami's first hospital, world famous surgeon from New Delhi, had come to pay his respects to Swami, visit him in the hospital. And, again, the doctors were trying their best to try to revive this body. But of course, when the avatar has decided something, we can do all we want. There's nothing we can do. The avatar has decided that was, the end of that body. That's the decision. But of course, we don't know that. So the doctors are doing their best to try to help and see what they can do. So Dr. Venugopal had come, and upon seeing the doctor, Swami was trying to convey something to him. He started mouthing something to him. And the doctor tried to get close to try to understand and see what Swami was saying. And he realized this is what Swami was trying to say. He was saying, "How are you today, doctor?" So again, this is, the body is suffering, but Swami, the spirit, the Atma, the divine creator of the universe, is not any different, only concerned about seva. Oh, let me turn this warning off on my computer. So looks like Swami's giving us a warning. There's just a couple of minutes left. So let's see if I have time. Maybe we can do one more story. So let's talk a little bit about humility. Swami says humility is the mark of true education. So, for some time, I had the privilege of being able to sit on the veranda, and you were able to make a lot of observations and see Swami, interacting with all his devotees and students day after day. And you can see through these interactions, the humility of Swami, and it's just so moving. He would ask people, "What's your name?" and what is that? And he would be so enthusiastic and grab something. "What do you think?" And he was so humble, and he knows everything. So the lesson, it reminds me of that lesson where, the saying is, God knows everything and acts like he knows nothing, and humans know nothing and we act like we know everything. So it reminds me of a story. For a while, years back, Swami had stopped granting Pad Namaskar, the touching of the holy feet. And, who knows why, but maybe there was a lot of indiscipline. Maybe he wanted us to go within, we don't know the reasons. But they had stopped, allowing people to do Pad Namaskar unless Swami specifically allowed them and gave them explicit permission. So in order to remind devotees and prevent them from being indisciplined, they needed students to walk in front of Swami, crouch, and just to make sure people understood that they weren't to get close. So this is our beautiful avatar. What does he do? He's the king of the universe, the creator of the universe. He couldn't blink his eyes and 100 people will run scattering in directions to serve him. What does he do? He humbly approaches those students. "Will you do this for me? Can you do this act of walking in front of me? Is this okay with you?" And then once the darshan is over, you can go ahead and do what you need to do. So the humility of asking, and what is the lesson? It's a lesson of, he's showing us true leadership. True leaders don't bark orders. True leaders don't lead by fear. True leaders show respect and love for others and cajole them and lead them on to greater actions and seva. So I think with this, we've run out of time, and I have lots of stories to share. We can go on all evening. So I think, I better stop. So, I think what I would recommend is, I think, we all have these stories. We all have our favorite stories of Swami. So I would recommend each of us grab your iPhone, grab your laptop, and share a story. Share your favorite story. It could be your personal story. It could be a story of a family. It could be something you read, something you saw, whatever that moves you. Share a story. Spend 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes, 10 minutes recording the story, maybe the lesson that it taught you or should teach us, and record it and send it to the regional officers. Maybe they can figure out a way to compile all of this on a website so we can, when we want some inspiration, we can go and watch each other, give each other stories. So with that, I do thank all of the organizers for giving me this chance to share my stories and relive some of these favorite stories. I thank all of you for patiently listening. And of course, along with you, I pray together to our dearest Bhagwan to bless all of us, and to help us learn the lessons we need to learn, help us intensify our sadhana, so that once we learned all the lessons we collectively need to learn, all of these tests that are going on right now will be taken away from us. So let's all intensify our sadhanas, cling to our beloved Swami, and I wish all of you nothing but joy and blissful state. Jai Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, Akshay, thank you so much for spending time with us on this day. I know you are busy. There are a lot of things going on in the service activities. There are many things we can take from these stories you shared, many values. And then each story is demonstrated on sacrifice and prayer, surrender, and then selfishness and humility, and how Swami's lived up to it. I think there are a lot of things we can learn from it. I think we should look for his grace to learn all those things. So let's all pray for it. Okay. So thank you, Akshay, for the wonderful stories. As you requested, I hope that all the members will record their stories and share with the center officers or regional officers. Then we can compile, and then we can upload in a common forum where everybody can access and learn from it. So thank you again. So in this satsang, next session is going to be a devotional singing session. So let's join devotional singing. Thank you. Sai Ram. Bye.
ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वप्रचोदयात्। 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 ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वप्रचोदयात्।
Oh
पतीश्वर दुख भंजना पतीश्वर दुख भंजना गणनाथ साई गजानना कैलासपते शिवनंदना कैलासपते शिवनंदना दीनानाथ हरे निरंजना दीनानाथ हरे निरंजना सिद्धि प्रदाता शुभानना सिद्धि प्रदाता शुभानना जगदीश्वर शांति निकेतना जगदीश्वर शांति निकेतना जगदीश्वर शांति निकेतना जगदीश्वर शांति निकेतना गणनाथ साई गजानना पतीश्वर दुख भंजना गणनाथ साई गजानना कैलासपते शिवनंदना दीनानाथ हरे निरंजना सिद्धि प्रदाता शुभानना जगदीश्वर शांति निकेतना जगदीश्वर शांति निकेतना जगदीश्वर शांति निकेतना
Sarayami Your presence in my soul.
light I see is Allah. When the light I see is Allah. When the warmth I feel is Allah. When the warmth I feel is Allah. When the air I breathe 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 is Allah. Then all I need is you, 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 Allah. Alhamdulillah. When the light I see is Allah. When the light I see is Allah. When the warmth I feel is Allah. When the warmth I feel is Allah. When the air I breathe is Allah. When the air I breathe is Allah. Then all I need is you, Allah. Then all I need is you, Allah. Alhamdulillah.
शंकर शंकर साम सदा शिव शंकर शंकर शंभो शंकर शंकर साम सदा शिव शंकर शंकर शंभो शंकर शंकर साम सदा शिव शंकर शंकर शंभो शंकरा साम सदा शिव शंकरा चंद्रकलाधर शंकरा साम सदा शिव शंकरा शंकर शंकर साम सदा शिव शंकर शङ्कर शङ्कर शम्भो कैलासवासा शङ्करा त्रिशूलधारी शङ्करा कैलासवासा शङ्करा त्रिशूलधारी शङ्करा शिवाय भवाय शिवाय भवाय शिव भव हर चन्द्रशेखरा शिव भव हर चन्द्रशेखरा शङ्कर शङ्कर साम सदा शिव शङ्कर शङ्कर शम्भो चन्द्रकलाधर शङ्करा साम सदा शिव शङ्करा शङ्कर शङ्कर साम सदा शिव शङ्कर शङ्कर शम्भो कैलासवासा शङ्करा त्रिशूलधारी शङ्करा शिवाय भवाय शिव भव हर चन्द्रशेखरा शिव भव हर चन्द्रशेखरा
रामचन्द्र रघुवीरा रामचन्द्र रणधीरा रामचन्द्र रघुवीरा रामचन्द्र रणधीरा रामचन्द्र रघुनाथ रामचन्द्र जगन्नाथ रामचन्द्र रघुनाथ रामचन्द्र जगन्नाथ रामचन्द्र मम बन्धु रामचन्द्र जय सिन्धु रामचन्द्र मम बन्धु रामचन्द्र जय सिन्धु रामचन्द्र रघुवीरा रामचन्द्र रणधीरा रामचन्द्र रघुनाथ रामचन्द्र जगन्नाथ रामचन्द्र मम बन्धु रघुवीरा रणधीरा रघुनाथा जगन्नाथा रघुरामा परम धामा मम बंधो दय सिंधु रघुवीरा रणधीरा रघुरामा परम धामा मम बंधो दय सिंधु मम बंधो दय सिंधु रघुवीरा रणधीरा रघुनाथा जगन्नाथा रघुरामा परम धामा मम बंधो दय सिंधु रघुवीरा रणधीरा रघुनाथा जगन्नाथा मम बंधो दय सिंधु मम बंधो दय सिंधु रामचंद्र रघुवीरा रामचंद्र रणधीरा
जय जगदीश हरे स्वामी संत साई हरे भक्त जना संरक्षक भक्त जना संरक्षक भक्ति महेश्वर ओम जय जगदीश हरे शिवदना श्रीकरा सर्वा प्राणपते स्वामी सर्वा प्राणपते आश्रित कल्पलतीका आश्रित कल्पलतीका आभस्वानः ओम जय जगदीश माता पिता शांति 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 समस्तलोका सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोका सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोका सुखिनो भवन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् अशीमवहु वहिष्ठेमस्ति उष्टास्ति उष्टाहमय शतशाय वहिष्ठायशि नमो तस्सा भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्स बुद्धं शरणं गच्छामि धम्मं शरणं गच्छामि संघं शरणं गच्छामि श्मा इस्राएल अदोनाय एलोहेनु अदोनाय एहाद अदोनाय एहाद अदोनाय एहाद Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. La ilaha illallah, Allah, Allah. 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 साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति 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 परमं पवित्रं भावाविभूतिं परमं विचित्रं लीलाविभूतिम् आत्मैष्टार्थमोक्षप्रदं
Sai Ram. The 23rd day of November, which you now honor as the day on which I was born, is only like any other day if you celebrate it in a routine, ritual fashion. Adore man, the adoration reaches me. Neglect man, you neglect me. Of what avail is it to worship the Lord and to suppress man, his counterpart? Love for God must be manifested as love for man, and love must express itself as service. Through love alone, love acquired through spiritual discipline and shared with all as spiritual discipline, can peace be attained by the individual as well as by the nation. My life is my message, and my message is love. That explains why you have gathered hither in hundreds of thousands. Birthday Discourse, 1975.